and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. It is a sunny and blue sky day here in HRM. It is a lot less muggy out there today, though, isn't it? Coming to work, it was what I would expect for September. It was, dare I say, fall-like out there today. A little bit chilly. Or it's just we're so used to these, 27, 32, 33 degree days with the humidity factored in that it felt cold. But it was a nice, lovely day there today. So hope you get a chance to get out there and enjoy it. I know the last couple of days have been a bit stifling and many people sticking very close to the air conditioning. But I was walking across the parking lot at Young Tower here coming into the studio this morning, and I think I smelt the sea air, which is rare considering all of the construction and traffic that is in the area. But I could smell it this morning, so it reminds me of fall when I smell that. Speaking of traffic, it's back, isn't it? We had, of course, the long weekend in September has passed, and people are getting back into their routines. And last week was a bit of a short week because of the HRCE students not going back until Thursday and into Friday. So I would imagine there was a lot of people that worked from home or stayed home last week. And Mondays traditionally are light traffic days, as are Fridays around here. But my goodness, Tuesday isn't, and it was in full effect today. My drive in on the 102 was a bit of a crawl, I will say, and it's very interesting. There was just a very minor fender bender on the 102 on the way in on the inbound lanes, and what that does to traffic is absolutely insane. And all it takes really is one or two just minor incidents, and we descend into chaos and into gridlock. It's just bizarre how on the edge that we're teetering with regards to traffic. I know we've had lots of discussions here on the program about what to do about it. We got to change the traffic flows. We've got to put more bus lanes in. We've got to get people out of their cars and into bikes, and that goes down the bike lane route. But it's a rude awakening after a summer of fairly light traffic, and then you run into that today. And I would imagine that's going to probably persist at least until Friday here around the region. Well, thanks to Vanessa Vandenez on the other side of the glass, who is doing a fantastic job helping us get this show together. Big news yesterday. Holy smokes. The DNR saying that more people that were evacuated from the Long Lake wildfire were allowed back home. Also saying that the fire is now held. It's not contained and it's not out. It's being held. And the definition that officials relayed yesterday was that they don't expect the fire to grow if the conditions remain the same. If we don't get some kind of bizarre wind event or something along those lines. So that's good news. I know there's an awful lot of people out there that are still working on that fire every day and are spending long, grueling hours trying to get it under control and protect property out there. And I know that there's a lot of gratitude that's flowing towards our firefighters and our emergency services on that Long Lake fire, and that will continue. Hopefully they can continue to make ground on that fire, and we get it out soon so that life can return to normal. Still some people out of their homes, still a number of evacuations, but the good news yesterday was that some that were evacuated that weren't part of that first return to property, return to home order that were able to return to their homes yesterday. Well, we had a little bit of rain in the weekend, right? We had some rain in the forecast yesterday. We saw it here, and there's some tomorrow. Let's remember that there are still 11 counties in Nova Scotia that have a travel ban in the woods. Now, I hope that the Premier and his cabinet are keeping a close eye, as they said they were, on this and get some restrictions off of some of these other counties as soon as it's safe. Again, I think that many of us are grateful to be able to get out in the woods, particularly in the Halifax County area, but those that have property or have places that they like to go in areas like Lunenburg County or Yarmouth County, are waiting for those restrictions to come off, and I hope the Premier is keeping a close watch on that, so that at the earliest moment we can get people back into the woods. I don't think we have seen a lot of people upset about the fire ban. I know that it's, people have backyard bonfires and such this time of the year, and I know there's some people that want to burn brush and that kind of thing, but I think we could probably live with the fire ban in effect until at least the Long Lake fire is under control and the situation calms down. But I think, like we saw in some other counties here in Nova Scotia on a per county basis, I think that it would be nice to see some of those restrictions come off as we head into the latter half of September, and of course, fire season officially ends. I think it's the 15th of October, and that has been sort of the date that's been circled. I hope it doesn't take that long, but I truly hope that the Premier's paying attention to what's going on in the woods with moisture and those kind of things, and is keeping that at the top of his agenda list. Speaking of Tim Houston, the new poll out today, and I will put caveats on these as I do for most polls and say that polls are polls, and they are a snapshot. But this one is a poll of premiers across the country. And the Premier of Nova Scotia is the second most popular premier in Canada. New numbers from Angus Reid released this morning have the popularity of Tim Houston at 53%. He's down 5 points, but he's still at 53%. Number one in the country, by the way, Manitoba's premier, Wab Kinew. The biggest riser, is that even proper English? The person with the biggest gain was Newfoundland Premier Hogan, who is fresh on the job, kind of got thrust into the spotlight with all of the wildfires that were happening around St. John's with the Canada Games going on. He saw a 12-point increase in his popularity. He's up at 51%. And as I understand it, and again, the caveat that I put out when I say I understand things is that I stand to be corrected. And you all do, and I appreciate that. But I think Newfoundland and Labrador is the next province that's scheduled to have an election. I think that Premier Hogan is going to go to the polls very shortly. But after a 12-point increase in popularity with regards to this new Angus Reid survey, I think that he is probably looking forward to that drop of the writ, so to speak, as opposed to trying to get his name out there and build after being an interim premier. It's tough, right? Because there's so much leftovers for baggage from the previous government, and then you're in your new administration, new ministers, all that stuff. But I think the people of Newfoundland and Labrador are quite happy with the way that Premier Hogan was and has continued to deal with the tragic wildfire situation there, and have rewarded him with a 12-point increase in his popularity. The least or lowest ranked premier in the country, by the way, is Quebec's François Legault. He's down another 3 points this time around and sits at 22% support. So if you follow the numbers, and again, polls are polls, I think Mr. Legault's time in the Premier's chair at the National Assembly in Quebec is maybe numbered. Doug Ford, by the way, and I don't know if this was taken before or after or maybe even during the Crown Royal dumping incident where he dumped out that bottle of rye whiskey in Ontario. He's up 3 points in this poll. He's at 41%, the second lowest ranked premier in the country, along with his counterpart in British Columbia being David Eby. So I'm curious to see what you think about the premier's performance, and we're going to, of course, open up the telephone lines as we traditionally do here on the program at 11 o'clock today. I'm going to ask you what you think of the job of Tim Houston. He certainly has been a busy premier since re-election, right? Some of the promises that he campaigned on have come to fruition. We saw the tolls come off the harbor bridges. He's waded into municipal politics here in HRM. He's certainly been very vocal about the bike lane debate, particularly at Morris Streets. Has perhaps broached strong mayor powers. We don't even know where that's at, to be honest. It feels like it's coming, but nothing official yet. I don't know if that's at the top of the agenda when the ledge sits again at the end of September. But I'm curious what you think. You're the one who puts the X on the ballot. What do you think of the performance thus far of Premier Tim Houston? Do you agree with this new poll that his popularity is over 50% at 53%, and he is the second most popular premier in the country? I'm curious to what you have to say about that, and we will open up the telephone lines after 11 o'clock. Also, the Prime Minister was in Newfoundland, Labrador yesterday. He said that Atlantic Canada, and that includes us here in Nova Scotia, will be able to access $80 million of the $1 billion tariff relief fund that's been set up by the federal government. Ottawa setting aside the money for a regional tariff response initiative to help small and medium-sized business diversify their markets and adopt new technologies. He laid out the same lines that we've heard from him before, that we can't rely on the United States as our trusted trading partner anymore, and we have to diversify markets. How that $80 million falls or is going to be divvied out, the Prime Minister didn't really answer that question yesterday. I watched the news conference with him. He said that it's going to be based on GDP and case by case, all the typical politician type terms. But $80 million to be administered by the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency. But he did have a small caveat on where the money's going, and said that the seafood industry, which we've touched on here on this program a couple of different times of what's going on there with tariffs and so on and so forth, will be eligible for this funding. So the seafood industry will get a chance to get a shot at this $80 million because, of course, the seafood industry hit hard with tariffs by China, which, of course, is, I think, our second largest trading partner with regards to, in Nova Scotia anyway, with regards to lobsters and other seafood, have a 100% levy. After we put the 100% levy on Chinese vehicles, so there's tariffs on seafood here, so the industry will be able to access that. So as you can see, lots to talk about. Also, I got another thing that's just bothering me. Last week we saw that Carney and the federal cabinet were huddled up in Toronto for 2 days. Now he's on another cabinet retreat, getting ready for this session. Why do politicians insist on having these meetings, these strategy sessions outside of Ottawa? It's got to cost a lot of money, doesn't it? I understand the need to kind of get to rally the troops and get everybody on board and get the agenda set for the session of the House of Commons. But do we have to do it in different parts of the country all the time? And then have a cabinet meeting one week and then have that cabinet with the rest of caucus at another retreat another day? It just feels like it's an awful lot of money that gets spent when we have all of the resources and the facilities available in Ottawa. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. We're going to stop. We're going to take our first break here on the program. When we return, the show continues. Have you seen this story on our website, on the City News Halifax website? Great white sharks have been making an appearance in our part of the world. We've seen and heard of stories off of beaches here in Nova Scotia, but this one was out in the Bay of Fundy, and they were out looking for whales and saw just a fantastic display of the power of a great white shark as it was kind of having lunch on a dead whale. One of the people that was there was a guide with the Freeport Whale and Seabird Tours, Seabird Tour Company, and that's Mandy Gayle. She will be our guest when we return. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. Happy Tuesday. We're back in minutes. All right, welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We know, as I mentioned before the break, that we've seen an increase in the number of sightings of great white sharks in our part of the world as oceans warm and food supplies move and I think we've got better tracking than we've had in the past. We've had people on the program telling us that there are many more than we even know in the waters out here, and sightings have become more frequent than as of late. And we heard of a diver that was out in the waters of the Atlantic that had a close encounter with a great white shark. And this story came on appeared on our website here on the weekend. And I think it was probably a pretty thrilling time for everybody that was on board that boat. There was a group that were out with Freeport Whale and Seabird Tours on Tuesday, September 2nd, and they were out obviously looking for whales and other sea creatures, and happened upon the carcass of a dead humpback whale, I believe. And got a bit of a surprise. Very pleased to welcome from Freeport Whale and Seabird Tours, Amanda Crocker. Amanda, how are you?
Hi, good, thanks. How are you?
Good. Tell me a little bit about how this all kind of rolled out. You were out taking a tour group to go look for whales, and you kind of knew that there was a carcass in the area, but weren't expecting to see what you saw.
No, we were not at all. We knew that the carcass was there from the day before. We had gone and looked at it the day before when we had reports that there was something in the bay. And I wanted to get some pictures of it to see if we could determine cause of death for this humpback that had died.
Right.
And then when it was up in the area the next day, we said, we'll go take a look at it and see if there's anything interesting around there, because there are sharks are known to feed on carcasses. So we kind of were hoping to see a shark, but we were never expecting to see a white.
Have you seen one before? Is this the first time, or have you seen them in the past?
No, never. Just on TV and book.
So you motored up to this carcass and describe to me what you saw when you got there.
So when we came up onto it, at first we were going very slow because we wanted to make sure that if there were anything was around there, we didn't scare it off. So the captain took the boat in very slowly and towards the whale, and from the front, we couldn't really see much. We could see that there was some splashing happening behind the whale, but it wasn't until we got up to it and kind of started going around the side of the whale that we seen this very large head and some very big teeth munching away at this guy.
It's the first thing I saw in the video was the size of the teeth on that thing.
I know.
So how close did you get to it? I'm just judging by the video here, it looks like you got pretty close to it.
We were very close. I have a big, long zoom on my camera, so it makes it look that we were a lot closer than what we actually were. But we were probably about 50 feet from it at one point. And
it didn't seem bothered that you were there. It was just having lunch.
Yeah, he was too focused on his lunch than he was on us.
How long did it stay around, or did you leave it in peace?
He was still there munching away when we left. We wanted to let him have his time with it. But we were sitting there watching him for at least 5 minutes.
Wow, what an experience! What did the people on board the boat say?
Everybody was super excited.
Right.
I was really glad that we had some of our long-term customers that were on there. Some of our favorite people were on the boat that day as well. And there was this very cute little boy, maybe about 6 years old, that on our way in, he just kept saying, "I seen a shark," and it was a white shark. And I said, he's going to go back to school with the best story ever.
No kidding, right? Yeah.
Every child's dream.
No doubt. It's like I saw Jaws, man.
Yeah.
So, as I mentioned, you don't normally see these things out there, but I would imagine after this experience, you might be keeping just a little bit more of a watchful eye for these big sharks.
Well, I mean, we can, but they need to have something to entice them for us to be able to see them. They can go weeks at a time that they don't come anywhere near the surface. So it's very rare for us to see sharks out there in general, any type of shark out there. But definitely when we see carcasses, we're going to be taking a closer look. For sure.
Amanda, how's the whale watching season this year so far?
It's been great. We've had an excellent season. This week that we did see the shark, we also saw Old Tom, the lone orca that hangs out here in the Bay of Fundy, and we saw an endangered leatherback sea turtle too, all within the same week.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, it was a really exciting week.
Busy week. And do you do tours for the rest of the year, or are you off now, or how does that work?
I have tours until Monday. Monday will be our last day of the season. We typically only run until about the middle of September because after that, there's not a whole lot of tours that are around that want to go out whale watching. So we're usually done.
And then you go back at it next summer, and hopefully you'll see more sharks.
Yep, July 1st, we'll be back at it again.
Amanda, I know you're busy. Appreciate your time. Thanks for the video,
No
and
problem.
thanks for the few minutes you spent with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's Amanda Crocker from the Freeport Whale and Seabird Tours. If you haven't seen the video, it's on our website at halifax.citynews.ca, and it's wild. It really is wild. I'm very glad to hear that she had a long lens on her camera, a zoom lens on her camera, so because it looks like they were really close. And I'm not kidding. The first thing that I saw when I saw that when I figured out what it was the size of the teeth on that thing. Huge. Anyway, I would imagine that we're going to have more. This is the second close encounter that we've been made aware of. As I mentioned earlier, there was one, some people were scuba diving that we saw in the news, but I would imagine there's been many more, and you can track these things. There's a number of companies that track these sharks, and I get emails every once in a while when one shows up in Halifax Harbor, or they seem, for whatever reason, they really like Mahone Bay and various places all the way up the coast here. And we've had shark experts on the program before to explain this behavior, and they say it's because of the change in ocean temperatures and the food supply that the sharks feed on moving into our part of the world. And the things that the sharks feast on have moved, so the sharks are following the food. It's kind of like a teenager after school, right? You'll find the fridge pretty quick. And those experts will also say that shark encounters, particularly on the beaches of Nova Scotia, are very rare. And we've had a beach closed this year because of a fin sighting. I think it was Queensland Beach, wasn't it? Or Queensland Beach. But one of the beaches was closed earlier this summer because of a fin sighting. But the experts will say that that sharks encountering, having connections with, I'm trying to find different ways to say biting humans are very rare. And a lot of times they'll get close, but not close enough. But it can happen, as we saw this the shark feasting on that whale and that video of those guys underwater diving. It's probably going to be part of our reality moving forward. We have to stop. Blake is going to join us here in a few minutes to update us on what's going on in the news. And when we come back, Baby Gates. The IWK has launched a program to help people keep their children safe in their homes by offering them Baby Gates. We'll dig into that when we have a conversation with a health promotion specialist with the IWK's Child Safety Link. Sarah Mavrak will be our guest. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. All right, welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. Hope you're having a fantastic day as we roll on into Tuesday and everything gets kind of back to normal. Everybody's getting back into their routines. Two-year pilot, this is from the CBC website. The two-year pilot project launched last year through the IWK Health Center's Child Safety Link, an injury prevention program. Done things like giving car seats and other safety items to families in need for years. The government provides like $500,000 to expand the program, and they're venturing out into a new pilot project to hand out Baby Gates as part of this safety program. And we're very pleased to welcome to the program today a health promotion specialist with the IWK Child Safety Link, Sarah Mavrak. Sarah, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
Good. Tell me a little bit about this program and the genesis of it. Why did you decide to move from car seats and also into now Baby Gates?
Yeah, so we were really fortunate to receive funding from the Nova Scotia government, which did allow us to start this program. But I think the need for the program came from two reasons. One, we were seeing a lot of data that childhood falls are an issue. They're a big source of the emergency department visits and the hospitalizations that we see in children under 14. And then we were also hearing from our community partners as well, just this need for affordable safety equipment for families today.
For those of us that maybe don't know what I'm talking about, what exactly is a baby gate?
Yeah, so a baby gate is a barrier that you can put up in your home. One of the kind of typical places that we see it is on the stairs. And so it gets installed into typically either two walls or a wall and a railing, and it blocks access for something. So specifically for small children with little hands, they're not able to open these gates. And so a parent or a caregiver would be able to use it, but it blocks that space from a child.
So people can come to your center to take part in this program? How does that all work?
Yeah, so for this program specifically, the way it works is that we offer grants to community organizations. So this is things like family resource centers, Indigenous health centers, or newcomer agencies. And then they apply and we give them the funding that they use to purchase those gates. And then they work with families in their communities to provide those gates and any other support or training or installation guides that are needed.
And that was my next point. Obviously, there's a little bit of knowledge required to put these things in and put them in correctly.
Yes, definitely. And that's one of the things that we have realized as well. So at Child Safety Link, we have been creating resources to support families in installing these types of gates as well. So we do have information that's available on our website, and we are putting out actually a new resource, both for centers and then also a guide specifically for families as well. And that's going to be released this November for Fall Prevention Month.
Tell me a little bit about the guide. What's included in it?
Yeah, so it kind of gives the full overview of just fall prevention information. So a little bit of the background information of why is it important to address falls. And then specifically for young children, knowing that a lot of these falls do happen at home, we're looking at how are the ways that we can prevent those. And one of those key ways, as we've discussed right now, is baby gates. And so there is installation tips, kind of some safety guides of, what is safe and what is unsafe when it comes to a baby gate, so that families know the best way to go about putting those in their homes to keep their little ones safe.
So when we're talking about baby falls, it's not necessarily just falling over when they're trying to learn to walk. This is like falling down the stairs and something where serious injury can happen.
Yeah, I think sometimes there is a bit of a misconception when it comes to children's falls. We think of those, scrapes and bruises, which we know that that's a typical part of children's development, especially as they are learning new milestones. But one of the things that we're really trying to prevent is those serious life-altering falls that can really impact a child for potentially the rest of their life. And so one of the areas that we do see that is on staircases. When you're looking at something in a home that there's significant height, it's not made for a child's body, it's made for an adult's body. So we're looking at ways to protect children from those serious life-altering falls.
And being able to take part in a program like this, not only will you get the equipment, we know families are struggling these days to make ends meet, but you'll also get some knowledge behind it and make sure that you have the gate and you have it put in right.
Definitely. Yeah, we know that, costs are expensive these days. So not only do we want to support families in having access to the equipment, we also want them to have access to the right information as well and accessible information. So we have different resources available in different languages to meet different needs as well. So I would recommend checking out our website if you're looking to get some more information on fall prevention in the home.
And that was where I was going next, Sarah. This obviously stairwells and such are one area, but there are a number of different hazards in the home, and I'm sure you have resources available for us to help protect our kids.
Yes, definitely. If you check out the website, we have information on home safety. We have information on safety on the road as well, so child passenger safety and safety at play. And that's all available for anyone who's looking for more information.
This project was launched last year. As I understand it, you've handed out over 170 of these baby gates. It goes on for another year yet. Is there any plans to extend it after the pilot ends?
That would be the ideal goal. So we are coming up close to the end of the second year of our pilot program. We have handed out 171 gates so far, but that's just a really early number. So the numbers will actually be much higher once we actually wrap up and get that final data. But I'm hoping with some of the awareness we got and just the importance in knowing that things are getting more expensive, that we could hopefully secure some funding to be able to offer this program, even Atlantic-wide, which would be really fantastic.
Sarah, once again, for those that may want to take part or they want to learn more, where's the best place to get information?
Yeah, if you would like to learn more, I recommend going to our website. It's www.childsafetylink.ca, and we do have our contact information on there. And then if there are families who are looking for more hands-on support, either reaching out to us or connecting with a local community organization that does work with families with young children, so things like a family resource center, they may be able to help you out there.
Sarah, appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
That is Sarah Mavrak, a health promotion specialist with the IWK's Child Safety Link. Some data from the CBC story says that there was an Atlantic Canadian cost of injury report released in 2018. That year, children visited the emergency department about 20,000 times. 20,000 times because of falls. Now, of those 20,000, 350 of them required hospitalization. Right. So, as I mentioned, we were speaking with Sarah, the costs are, I really, truly don't know how young families are able, and I shouldn't laugh as it's not funny, are able to afford to deal with having kids and diapers and food and then utilities and rent and all of the water bill that's going to go through the roof. And the list goes on and on and on, and it doesn't sound like a lot when a gate is like $50, but can go up as much as $100 or even more, depending on what you need for where you need it in your home. It's just one of those expenses that it's a need to have, but sometimes you have to make awful decisions when you're raising a young child and you're a young family, right? This program gives you an opportunity to at least get those gates up and prevent some falls. I've been in homes with these things. They're sometimes testing for adults too, aren't they? But that's good because it keeps the little hands from opening them, and sometimes Dan's hands too, because sometimes I have trouble figuring the whole thing out. We're going to stop. We're going to continue the program on the other side of it. When we come back, the QE2 BMO Ride for Cancer right around the corner. We're going to shine a big spotlight on what's going on this year with the Director of Events and Partnerships at the QEII Foundation. Dianna MacDonald will be your guest. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Olstrand. We're back in minutes.
Axe.
All right, welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Olstrand. Hope you're having a fantastic Tuesday here as we continue to roll along on the program. It was scheduled for the end of September, but because of the ongoing dryness and the ongoing situation here in Nova Scotia and some of the areas that this ride would roll through still being under province-wide bans in the woods, it has been rescheduled, so we thought it was a good time to bring the good folks on from the BMO Ride for Cancer into the show and explain kind of what's going on for those that are wanting to and are already signed up to participate. Very pleased to welcome into the show today to tell us a little bit more about the new look, I guess we can call it. Ride for Cancer is the Director of Events and Partnerships at the QE2 Foundation. It's Dianna MacDonald. Dianna, how are you?
I'm great, Dan. How are you?
I am well. So when you plan these events, they take months and months and months and months of preparation and thousands of hours and all kinds of volunteers, and then Mother Nature throws a curveball at you, and you all have to start kind of from scratch. So I guess to get it out there, this event is going to go on, but it's been delayed because of those province-wide wildfire ban thingies.
Yeah. So you sound very familiar to the event industry.
Yeah.
Pivot's actually become my middle name over the last 6 years. But yes, we have had to reschedule till October 18th. And the ultimate reason being is, yes, we had a provincial wildfire ban and there was a trail closure, which has now been lifted. Right. But there's so much time and energy and planning that goes into an event of this magnitude, including recruiting 300 volunteers to help us execute 160 kilometers of an event. So when we found out about the trail closure and the ban being in effect until October 15th, we knew we had to make a decision to give our riders and their donors in the community an opportunity to say, this is going to happen. We need to follow the government's regulations, and we're pivoting yet again.
So the ban on the portion of the trail that you normally use for this event is now lifted, right? But
it is now lifted, yes.
But the logistics to get it done in time for September was just too great, so it made sense to move it back to October.
Exactly, and then we are ensuring that we are executing this event not only for our riders, but their donors who support them in this challenge every year.
All right, Dianna, tell me a little bit about the people that have registered. Do they have to re-register for this, or how does that all work?
Absolutely not. We're like Disney World. We create an experience where we make it so easy for our riders and our donors that all we did was change the date. Obviously, there's a lot of work on our end, but that is not going to impact our riders in any way. We did have 52 people not able to participate on event day, and we have created another Ride Your Own Way event for them so that they can still complete their ride challenge, do their fundraising, and be a part of this incredible community.
So in order to accommodate this change, those that can't make it for the date on the 18th can still finish the route and on their own kind of time.
Absolutely. And we have created an incredible experience for them where they're going to feel the magic of event day on their own time.
Nice. So tell me about event day. What is the route? Where does it start? Where does it end?
So it's actually 7 routes, in fact. We have distances on the trail and distances on the road. So it is the only road and trail cycling event in the entire country. And we're incredibly proud of that. And so it starts in Bayers Lake on Hobson Lake Drive and goes as far out as Hubbards from a trail perspective. So you do 50 kilometers out, 50 kilometers back, but along that we have a 25-kilometer distance, a 50-kilometer distance, and 100. And then on the road for the really elite cyclists, and we call these our challengers. They're people that are on these bikes every single day, training, riding, and that's 100 kilometers, 160, and 130.
Yikes.
And it goes along the beautiful Aspatagan loop.
Oh,
You have got to train for that. That's not like pulling your bike out of your garage every year to do 25 kilometers. That is something you have to prepare for all year long.
Right. And it's kind of hilly in there. and we'll challenge it. We'll even challenge the most seasoned cyclists, so to speak.
Absolutely, especially with the date change. The weather is a huge factor for us because there is, a little bit more frost this time of year. So we've had to adjust our start times and our finish times because the sun sets earlier and it rises later. So we've had to change a lot of the actual event day, but we're going to make it work. And there's some silver linings. It might be the best yet.
Right, because you're going to get the fall colors if there's any left.
Exactly.
And the temperature's a little bit cooler, so you're not going to overheat. And you're not going to see, we want rain, but we're not going to see any rain on that day.
No, and I will add to that. I said earlier that, you didn't ask me about this, but I said earlier that I'm used to pivoting, and it's kind of my middle name. We have honestly faced hurricanes, fires, floods, COVID, and have still executed this event year after year. So this is not a big deal for us. It just takes a lot of time and energy. And we're finding all the little magic moments to make it equally as special, if not better.
Dianna, where does the money go? What does this support?
This is the most exciting part, to be honest. So it is a ride, and that is the challenge. But at the end of the day, it's about cancer care. It's about cancer care in our region and in Atlantic Canada and supporting local cancer care at the QEII. So over we're going into our 11th year this year, we have raised over $13 million net through this event.
Wow.
which has enabled us to purchase life-saving, world-first technology right here in Nova Scotia. And when I say world-first, I mean that. People's jaws drop. Like, no, not Nova Scotia. Absolutely. And the BMO Ride community was the catalyst to that. 1 in 2 Nova Scotians are diagnosed every year. 1 in 3 do not survive.
Right.
And that is an alarming stat, and this event exists to combat that.
Dianna, is it too late for somebody to participate? Are you still taking applications?
We absolutely are. As long as you can fundraise your minimum $1,000 between now and October 18th, we welcome everybody.
Dianna, best of luck. Hopefully you don't have to pivot anymore. And we wish you the very best, and we'll all put our fingers together, and hopefully we'll get some sunshine on the race date, which is or the ride date, which is October 18th.
You know it. Thank you so much.
Dianna MacDonald from the QEII Foundation. It's a huge event. People train for it because it's that Aspetuck Loop is not easy, and there's also different levels and different for different riders' abilities, so to speak. And it all goes to a really, really great cause. So I hope that if you haven't already supported it, that you do. We're almost at the top of the hour. When we do hit the top of the clock, Blake will be joining us to update us on what's going on in the world with the news. And on the other side of it, we're going to throw open the telephone lines. It's an open hour. You can talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. But I'm very curious. New poll data out today showing the Premier of Nova Scotia, Tim Houston, as the second most popular Premier in Canada. His approval has dropped 5 points, which in any other situation would normally be a cause for concern. But he still sits at 53% approval for the job that he's doing. He's one spot behind Manitoba's Premier, Wab Kinew, for top spot in the country. My question to you is, because, well, polls are polls, do you think that Tim Houston is doing a good job as Premier? As I laid out at the top of the program today, he certainly has been busy. Some of the campaign promises that he made during the last go-round have come to fruition, right? He said he was going to take the tolls off of the harbor bridges. That has happened. He certainly has been very vocal on some of the hardcore municipal issues, right? His government refusing the central plan. Also weighing in on the debate over bike lanes, particularly on Moore Street. And also, threatened is a bad word, has broached the idea of granting Halifax Mayor Andy Fillmore strong mayor powers. We've had discussions about some of these on the program. Some of you called and say that they should just get rid of the municipal government altogether and let the province take over. I'm curious as to what your thoughts are and what kind of approval rating you give the Premier of Nova Scotia. Tim Houston, currently nationally, 53% approval rating. What kind of job is the Premier of Nova Scotia doing? Also, of course, open hour, anything goes. You can talk about whatever is on your mind. I'd also like your thoughts on this tradition of federal politicians traipsing about the country to go for these cabinet retreats and caucus retreats and whatever other kind of meeting in different parts of the country. I get it. It's an economic driver for the city or the town where it happens. But why do we insist on having caucus retreats outside of Ottawa? The infrastructure is already there. The MPs all have places to stay. There's, I think, probably a meeting room in Ottawa. Why do we have to go to places like Toronto or Edmonton or Calgary or Vancouver or wherever in the country to have these meetings? Why can't we save $1 and do it in Ottawa? We're hearing all kinds of talk about this federal budget that's coming out, and there's going to be some I don't want to say austerity measures because that has a really negative connotation, but some cost-saving measures, so to speak. There's talk of trimming the civil service, yet we're still traveling all over the country when we could be meeting in Ottawa where everybody already is or should be. Your thoughts on that as well. The open hour comes up right after the break. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. Back in minutes.
X.
Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. It is Tuesday. It's just after 11 o'clock, and that means it's time now for the open hour. The lines are open, 902-405-6000, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That's the toll-free line, if you please. A couple of things I'm curious to hear your thoughts on. Of course, this is the open hour. You can talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. But I'm curious to see what your thoughts are on the performance thus far of Premier Tim Houston and his government here in Nova Scotia. A new poll released this morning from Angus Reid shows the Premier of Nova Scotia at 53% popularity or support or approval, I think is the proper terminology. Number 2 in Canada. He did see a 5% slide in his numbers, and I don't know if that's a trend or if that's just a honeymoon or whatever, but still number 2 in the country behind Manitoba's Wab Kinew. Your thoughts on the job thus far of Premier Tim Houston and his government. Also, Mark Carney is in Edmonton with the rest of his caucus, having a retreat in advance of a session of the House of Commons. It bothers me when I see these kind of things happen, and the reason why it bothers me is that Mark Carney has been hinting very strongly that there will be some cost cutting in this upcoming budget. There's been a lot of focus on the civil service, and regardless of where you fall on the size of the civil service, if it needs to be trimmed, if it's bloated, if it's not, it doesn't signal a very good message that the politicians are meeting in Ottawa, and I will guarantee you they're not staying in budget hotels and eating budget meals and meeting in a budget facility. I'll bet you they're meeting in a fairly nice facility, and there's a lot of them. And why do we have to have caucus and cabinet retreats outside of Ottawa, where the facilities already exist, the infrastructure is already in place? Those MPs and cabinet ministers already have their own accommodations that, by the way, you and I are paying for already. Why do we have to continually traipse across the country to have these events? And it's probably not fair to just dump that all on Mark Carney and the Liberals, because the NDP have done it and do it. The Conservative Party have done it and do it. The facilities are in Ottawa. If we need to save money, there's a good place to start. 902-405-6000 is the number, 902-405-6000. Let's begin with Ed. Ed, how are you?
Good, Dan. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you, sir.
I was calling actually about the Premier. I'm not a big fan of Premier Houston's for a number of reasons, but one maybe not everybody is thinking of is he wants to double our population here in Nova Scotia. And besides the obvious problems of medical services and housing, do we have enough water in this province for doubling the population?
Well, there's very big talk that today or tomorrow they're going to put some restrictions on people because Lake Major is at a critical level.
Yeah, so I keep wondering why a bigger population is better. I'm not young, and I remember this province when the population was a lot smaller, and it operated just fine.
Did it?
Pardon me?
Did it?
Yes. Yeah, we were. I think the province operated very well. More people doesn't necessarily make for a better place to live. Otherwise, we all should move to New York City.
Well, I get that part. But the reason why I asked did it was that Nova Scotia has been a have-not province for how long?
That's money. But also there's the other factor of a decent place to live.
No, quality of life, I'll agree with you 100%, Ed, 100%. But we are in a bad financial situation in the province. I'm not making an excuse for him.
Overspending.
The province is the lowest in North America when it comes to gross domestic product. So something has to change.
Right. And I can tell you when it comes between water and money,
I get it.
Water is still way more important.
I'll agree.
There's other things we could do. I think it's overspending by politicians that have caused this problem. I could have got one of my grandmothers to run this province. I don't come from a rich family. We had very little, but we got along and we didn't outspend our means. So I think this is what, and like you said, politicians having fancy meetings at fancy hotels outside of places where they already have facilities.
Right.
Anyway, the second reason for my call was the justice system on all levels, I think, has let us down. And two of the cases I'm thinking of are, one, the RCMP charging a man in Lindsay, Ontario, for defending his own home. And they're saying he was too violent with the guy. Well, what was he supposed to do? Hold an armed intruder down with one hand while he called the police with the other?
No, well, I agree. But the situation with that still has to play out, right? He's been charged, yes. He's been arrested.
Charged. I really don't. I remember it was heavily on the news, a bunch of policemen surrounding a bus with a teenager on it, and they shot him to death. And they have training for this situation. And there was a bunch of them. The teenager had a knife. I don't know what size, but he had a knife. That was it. Did they have to shoot him to death? They shot him a number of times, by the way. So maybe if the police are pointing one finger at this gentleman, maybe they should be pointing four back at themselves. And the last point, Dan, if I may, was that I take that back. A man named Douglas Worth has just been set out on parole. He was violent since he's been a young man, home break-ins, rapes, and he was in jail for about 35 years for up in Ontario. He raped, murdered, and beheaded a 12 or 13-year-old girl. This man should have never – to me, this guy is a reason for bringing the death penalty back, but he should have never been let out on parole. The police still think he's a dangerous offender. Should not the parole board be responsible to the people for the people they release into society?
One would think. Ed, appreciate the call, sir.
Thank you.
Have a good one. 902-405-6000, 902-405-6000, or 1-877-801-8255. Lots of points to unpackage there from Ed, the justice system. That I would roll back onto the politicians. I think that the laws need to change, right? And he laid out a number of cases. There's been how many countless cases that we've seen come before the courts and then either very little penalty or no penalty at all, or a not guilty verdict. I think that our justice system and our laws in this country need a serious overhaul and need to be updated to 2025, to be quite honest with you. Also, the immigration thing, yes, we know that the premier said that he wants to double the population, but that's not until, 2040? That being said, we have been – it was a great place. It's still a great place to live, right? But to say that we got along fine in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, I will suggest that the province has been in financial dire straits for a long time. We've had to rely on equalization payments for how long, right? Is immigration the solution to that? I don't think so. I think it plays a role. I think that we need to create industry here. I think we need to create high-paying jobs. I think we need to have something that people can do, that they'll want to come here and have gainful employment and be able to afford to stay in a place here. Quality of life, I get that. I get it. But the province and the premier has said that the province is what? It was 50th on that list for GDP in North America? It's scary.
Is what?
Let's welcome Len to the program. Len, how are you?
GDP in North America?
Len, you're going to have to turn your radio down.
It's scary. Is what?
Len, I'm going to put you on hold and we'll come back to you when you turn your radio down, okay? Let's go to Brady. Brady, how are you?
Good morning, Todd. I just want to speak about the the lack of services and the decline in the quality of life in rural Nova Scotia.
Sure.
I've lived in Chester municipality all my life. I'm 63 years old. I'm a landowner here, small farmer, forestry worker. And everything I do and try to do in the last year and a half or so, everything's just going downhill like a toboggan on a downhill ski slope. It's just incredibly terrible. Part of the road I live on, the Chester Grant Road, was paved in 2014. The other half of it was graveled and never paved, and now that's so rough, the only safe place to drive is the ditch. And you call about it. I've called multiple times, and this morning I called again, and the answer I got, well, we couldn't grade it because of the dry weather conditions. We were scared the grader would hit a rock and cause a fire. I've never heard anything so crazy in all my life. How do you cause a fire when the grader hits a rock and the moldboard is shoving gravel ahead that'll smother the fire if it did start? Like, that's ridiculous.
I don't know how a grader operates. Sounds like you do, so I'll take your word for it.
Well, I mean, like you smother a fire out either, like a fire can't burn without oxygen, and most people need oxygen to breathe, to live. I think the only ones lately that don't are politicians. I don't think they can think.
They expel a lot of hot air, though.
Almost certainly that's what's happening with global warming, I think, especially from the U.S. since, what was it, November.
Right.
It's serious stuff, though, like our services here, the road maintenance, and now we've had attacks on some of our regulations in our rural trucking industry. Lately, they're going to change all that, and some of us will be out of work completely. There just seemed to have completely party that said they were here for the rural people. It just seems like they've lost direction.
That's the 80-20 program, correct?
Correct. Yes, I was one of the people that worked on that committee for almost a dozen years when it was written over the years, from the 90s to 2006, roughly. I was on that committee.
Brady, does it work? Does the 80-20 program really work? And I'm not being facetious. I don't completely understand it.
Well, okay, it's like anything else. It works if you're willing to make it work. It's like any team effort. It's a three-way team. The DOT are the enforcement people on that end of it. The road builders are the one part of the equation, and we, the truck people, are the other part of the equation. And yes, it does work if you apply yourself. If the DOT doesn't enforce it, if the contractor doesn't follow the regulations that are there, well, no, it can't work. It's the same as a set of skis. If you don't put them on your feet, they're not going to work.
Right.
You've got to be willing to make it work. And our people this way, our rural members, are guaranteed work at least a couple times a week if there is tender work to do. If that's scrapped, number one, I don't know how a contractor will bid on a job not knowing what the cost of the trucking end of their tender is going to be, because there'd be no standardized rate.
Right, that makes sense.
All our members have to have completed safety programs before they go to work. That'll be all gone out the window. There'll be no way to enforce that. And I don't. Some of the road building company people that I've talked to definitely don't look forward to trying to call all the trucks themselves. So I don't know how it's really supposed to work. And the other problem, our people that met with the minister weren't even told what was wrong with it. Was there things that need to be fixed? It was just, as of the end of 2026, it's going to be scrapped. Or 2025, sorry.
Right. Brady?
So that's just one thing. Anyway, I'm just very concerned with rural life and rural quality of life in Nova Scotia.
I understand, sir, and I appreciate your call.
Thank you.
That is the number, 902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The 80-20 program, as I mentioned to Brady, I'm not entirely sure how the whole thing works, but I know it's an important thing, and it's an important resource for rural Nova Scotia. So we're going to dig into that here on the program, I promise to you. Vanessa says I have to take a break, so we're going to do that. We'll be back with the open hour on the other side. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. The telephone lines are open. 902-405-6000. That's 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. It is the open hour. You can talk about whatever it is on your mind. A couple of things I'm curious about. New polling data showing the Premier of Nova Scotia still maintaining a 53% approval rating, number 2 in the country behind Manitoba's Premier Wab Kinew. Your thoughts on what the job of the Premier of Nova Scotia has been thus far. Also, from the federal scene, I see that the Liberal government is in Edmonton today for a caucus retreat before they head off to Ottawa to resume the session of the House of Commons. This always bothers me. And in today's world and with the signals from the government that we are looking at a cost-cutting budget, particularly with the civil service. They've been talking about that for months now. What kind of signal does that send when you're saying, I know you guys are going to have to look for savings, but we're going to jet off to Edmonton to have meetings that we could have right here in Ottawa where all of the infrastructure is already there. The meeting rooms are already paid for. The accommodations for all of those MPs and staff and everybody else, I mean, it's already there. Why do we have to continually go across the country to have these meetings? I understand it has an economic impact, an economic benefit for the city or the town or the community that hosts these things, but is the juice really worth the squeeze? I mean, if we're going to look at saving money and watching these pennies in this new reality that we're in, shouldn't the government do that first? Or am I just, that's pie in the sky thinking, Dan? What are you talking about? 902-405-6000, 902-405-6000. Before we get back to the phones lines, and there are a couple of lines open if you want to get on, I did receive a number of emails yesterday about our counselors on the hot seat segment. It was a vigorous exchange, can I call it? Many of you not pleased with that exchange between Councillor Sam Austin and former councillor and Mayor of Dartmouth, Gloria McCluskey. As I said yesterday, I try during the Councillors on the Hot Seat segment to take a step back, to let the conversation happen, to let the questions happen, to let you put the councillors on the hot seat, so to speak. But when it gets out of bounds, then, of course, I have a duty to try and to stop that. I don't think that conversation between Gloria and Sam Austin got out of bounds from my perspective. I wanted to let the conversation go. Maybe I let it go too long. I don't know. But many of you not happy with that exchange. Now, I'm just going to suggest you can judge for yourself whether Councillor Austin or former Councillor McCluskey were at fault there. But that's the beauty of the Councillors on the Hot Seat segment, right? 902-405-6000. Let's go back to Len. And Len, are you on the radio again, Len?
But that's the beauty of the Councillors.
I'm going to stick you back on hold, and Vanessa's going to sort that out. He's obviously listening to us on the radio today. Robert, how are you?
Not too bad. How are you doing?
Good. What's on your mind?
The Premier.
Yep.
I worry about the large majority he has. And I think all Nova Scotians should worry about what he's up to. He's trying to start fracking and uranium mining, which
right.
I disagree with.
Yeah, he has a supermajority in the House, that's for sure. He doesn't need support of any other party.
No, and he's trying to push these things through, which all Nova Scotians should be keeping an eye on what he's up to.
Right. It's it can be change, generational change if he has his way with this. If we once you let it's a bad analogy, but once you let the genie out of the bottle, it doesn't go back in easy.
That's right. And also, the Premier doesn't seem to think we need a water bomber, which I disagree with. And we're going to Canada is going to start making water bombers again, and there's a factory in Calgary that is starting to make water bombers, and I think the Premier should call them up and order a water bomber.
Takes 7 years apparently to get one.
Well,
get started. I get it. Yeah, I agree with you. I think we need one. I was at the Bears Lake fire. I was at Susie's Lake. I saw the impact that those water bombers made. We need those here, without a question.
Yes, we do. The helicopters and that may be fine, but water bombers does a better job.
Absolutely. It changed that whole fire.
Yes, that's right. So thank you very much for taking my call.
All right, Robert, have a good one. 902-405-6000 is the number, 902-405-6000. To be fair to the Premier, I don't think he said that we don't need a water bomber. I think that he has said that they're constantly the political speak, right? They're constantly monitoring the situation. But how many water bombers did we need, or are we using, or did we use on Long Lake? And I get it that they're expensive and they're hard to come by, and to get the crews and the pilots is a costly endeavor. I understand that, and we have a robust sharing program that happens across the country, right? And we saw assets from the Northwest Territories here. They might even still be here. We saw bombers from Alberta. We saw bombers from Newfoundland and Labrador. We saw work crews from Ontario. We saw work crews from New Brunswick. We saw I get it, and it's kind of it's very comforting to me to see how that sharing plan works. But we were at a situation here particularly when just before Long Lake started and Susie's Lake started. That New Brunswick was very busy with wildfires of their own, and Newfoundland and Labrador very busy with wildfires of their own. And boy, if those water bombers hadn't come from the Irishtown fire in New Brunswick and spent some time on that Susie's Lake fire, I think we'd be having a different conversation today. And I know it's reactionary, and I know that they study things, and I know there's a lot smarter people that look at these things than I. But my goodness, without those bombers, that fire absolutely changed when those bombers came on station. Absolutely changed. I was there. We're going to stop and take a break. The open hour continues on the other side of the news. 902-405-6000 is the number, or 1-877-801-8255. The open hour. After the break. All right, welcome back to the Open Hour. I'm Dan Alstrand. Hope you're having a fantastic day. The number is 902-405-6000, 902-405-6000, or 1-877-801-8255. You can chat about whatever it is on your mind. That's the beauty of an open hour. I am curious, though, what your thoughts are on the latest poll from Angus Reid showing the approval rating for Premier Tim Houston at 53%, making him the number 2 most popular premier in the country. What kind of jobs Tim Houston been doing thus far? And your thoughts on these caucus meetings. I get the need to meet. I get the need to rally the troops. I get the need to get everything ready for the return of the House of Commons. But do we need to travel over the country to do that? Why can't we do it in Ottawa? Send a message to everybody. Hey, look, we're going to ask you to tighten your bootstraps. We're tightening ours. 902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000. All right. Let's see if he's there. Len, are you there?
I'm here.
Hey, how are you?
Another beautiful summer day.
It is. What's on your mind today, sir?
Well, listen, I've gone to many, and I've worked for a few companies, and I've gone to many meetings that we've always had and retreats of them, and all they ever turned out to be was a vacation for the people that went there.
Right.
Really and truly, nothing comes out of those things. You know, it's just like all these things that they have in the world, these G7s and everything else. Have you ever heard of any results that have come from these meetings? To me, all these people that go to these particular things, it's all it is a vacation for these people that go to them. They're living in luxurious hotels. They're eating the most expensive meals. Just remember one thing, Dan. What was it? Was it our Governor General? Was it one time a few years ago that went to a hotel and paid about $200 or $300 for a glass of orange juice. Do you remember that?
It was Bev Oda, I do believe, and she was a cabinet minister.
Yeah, spent a couple of $100 for a glass of orange juice. Where are these people thinking of the taxpayer when they do that? You know what? To me, it's a vacation, and that's all it is a vacation, which we do not need. Now, I can see having a meeting with all your people once a year, but to go on retreats every once in a while and travel all over the country, I disagree with that, and I wish I was young enough that I could run for Prime Minister of this country so that I could abolish all these things that are wasting money of the taxpayers' money. The other thing is, I think Tim Houston is doing an excellent job.
Okay.
I don't think there was any other really leader that could have been in charge of our province other than Tim Houston right now. And so I give him at least an 8 right now. Anyway, you have a great day.
Thanks, Len. 902-405-6000, 902-405-6000. Len, lots of points there. I'm not suggesting that meetings aren't important. I think that meetings are, but we have different ways to meet now, right? But that being said, I think that an in-person meeting is always better than a Zoom meeting because you can catch the body tone and everything else. But that being said, I'm not suggesting that the caucus doesn't meet. I'm suggesting that they should meet where they work. Let's meet in Ottawa. As I said before, the MPs already have a place to stay, right? We're already paying for that. They already have a place to meet. We're already paying for that. Why do we have to go to Edmonton and pay for it all again? That's all I'm saying. 902-405-6000 is the number. Let's welcome Gary to the show. Gary, how are you?
Not too bad, Dan. Thank you for taking my call. You had a gentleman on there that was saying that he was living in Nova Scotia all of his life, and he had a better way of life when there was less population. And I tend to agree with him 100%.
Okay,
Dan, because we had previous Mayor Savage, and we had the councillors around that same time saying that we need more people. The Premier was saying we need more people. We need new these high risers because it was going to keep the taxes low. It was going to be better for raising taxes for our healthcare system and all of that stuff. And it never happened. It never materialized. Our taxes are higher. There's more traffic. And our healthcare system is to the breaking point again. I know people that have been in palliative care and have been kicked out because they weren't dying fast enough. Basically, I mean, I'm putting a bad picture on it. I know, but it's true. I know 2 people, and they're being sent off to either at home or to a nursing home. It's in the shambles. No one was without a doctor in years gone by when the population was lower. Myself, I had an accident that I had a broken foot. It happened on the job. An ambulance showed up with a doctor and a couple of nurses in it. I mean, it was overkill. I agree. I was in the hospital one day, 3 hours before I was up in the OR, and they gave me a figure 8 bands and a screw. A couple of weeks later, because I needed to be rehabilitated in the hospital, I was sent home. But now you wait. You with broken bones, you can wait for days before you're seen. It's just the quality of life is worse with more people. I don't care what anybody says. I think we've moved too fast. Our infrastructure hasn't kept up pace. The roads are a mess. I don't know what else to say about it, Dan. It's the proof is in the pudding, really.
Gary, appreciate the call, sir.
And that's like I said, I've been here all my life, and you can call it nostalgic or whatever, or maybe some people will say, well, that's the way that they were thinking back then. But no, that's the truth.
Have a good one, sir.
Thank you, Dan.
902-405-6000, 902-405-6000. It's difficult to argue with some of Gary's points, isn't it? But all of that being said, the province is in a dire financial situation. Absolutely dire. Look at the number of that the debt is at. Look at the amount of, and I get it. And I know that the answer to that is, well, the government spent too much money. I understand that. I do. And I agree with you. But to sit at 500 or 600,000 people and that's it and that's all, everything around us is getting much more expensive. Right? So how do we end up paying for it all? Did we get it right with increasing the population? No. And I'll agree with Gary that our infrastructure didn't and isn't keeping up with it. That's why we have the housing situation that we have. But to say, well, it was, it was better when there were less people here, the quality of life certainly was, but was it even close to being sustainable? That's the question. 902-405-6000, 902-405-6000. Let's welcome Dan to the show. Dan, how are you?
Good, Dan. How are you?
I'm good. What's on your mind, sir?
Thanks for taking my call. I want to talk about the premiers.
Sure.
My favorite is I like Tim. I like Tim very well.
Okay.
But the thing is, all the callers are stressing how there's too many people coming now and everything. And I like Ford is my favorite. And they're pretty good buddies. Him and Ford are pretty good buddies.
They're pretty tight, that's for sure.
They are. And I laughed the other day. Doug Ford said about Tim, he said, "You're the best looking premier." I know, eh?
Right.
So I met him. I met Tim Houston, and he seems like, he's a nice guy. He's a Pictou County boy, right?
Right.
And yeah, he's doing a great job. But the thing is there not a number how many people can come in here? Because all the callers have said that it was a lot better when it was normal, and now it's kind of abnormal. There's so many immigrants and everything coming, and I'm not racist.
Well, yeah, and I will say, Dan, that immigration has been busy in Nova Scotia. There's no doubt about it. But when we think of immigration, we immediately think of people coming from off our shores, right? But that's not the entire problem here. The problem is that people are selling up in other places in Canada, in Alberta and Ontario, Toronto, particularly during the pandemic. Right, they're coming here because the property was cheap, and they're buying everything up, right? So it's got to be, there's, and I don't know can you control interprovincial migration?
Yeah, well, like I said, it kind of reminds me of Mississauga or Scarborough back in the day. It's just littered with these people coming and going, and I had to go to the emergency last week because I hurt myself. I had a fall, and I'm older now, and I was there for 8 hours.
Oh, you got off easy.
Yeah, really.
Right.
But anyway, I'd like to make another comment.
Sure, very quickly. I'm up against the break, Dan. Very quickly.
Yeah. Another favorite of mine too, Counselor, was Gloria McCluskey. She called a spade. Right. And I like Gloria big time.
Dan, appreciate the call, sir.
No trouble.
902-405-6000, 902-405-6000. The open hour continues after the break.
Axe.
Vanessa's a mom, right? She's got kids and she has teenagers, and looking after me sometimes is even a tougher job than looking after a teenager. Our last caller, Dan, said that Tim Houston is a good Pictou County boy. He is now, but he will be very straight with you, and every time comes in here tells me that he grew up in Fairview. So he's a Halifax product living in Pictou County now, I think is probably the best way to describe that. Thanks to the callers who wanted me to correct the record, and I certainly did. And we will try to have the Premier here on the program. We've been quite honestly trying to get him on all summer. He normally comes in here a couple times a year and sits in the studio and answers your questions. And I know Vanessa's working very hard behind the scenes to try and make that happen for us again as we get closer to the end of September and the new session of the legislature. So make sure you stay tuned. We'll give you plenty of notice when the Premier's coming, and that way you can get yourself in the queue, as they say, and can ask your questions of the Premier. But my question to you today is your thoughts on the Premier and the job that he's doing thus far. It's all based on a new poll that came out today from Angus Reid that says the Premier of Nova Scotia, Tim Houston, is enjoying a 53% approval rating, the second highest approval rating in the country behind Manitoba's Wab Kinew. Your thoughts on the job he's doing and these caucus meetings. And that's not Tim Houston's fault. That's Mark Carney's fault. The Liberals are meeting I think they're in Edmonton. And I just don't understand it, and I never have understood it. That I get the need for a meeting, I get the need to get everybody together, get everybody on the same page, lay out the legislative agenda and all that stuff. I understand that, but we have places to meet in Ottawa. Why do we have to go around the country? They come here, they go to the West Coast, they go all over the place. Why can't we just meet in Ottawa where the infrastructure is already there? 902-405-6000 is the number. We welcome Ken to the show. Ken, how are you?
Good. How are you, Dan?
Good. What's on your mind, sir?
I think Houston is doing a pretty good job. Like the resources and that, like people are upset about fracking and stuff like that. I mean, do you really want your roads to be in the same condition for the next 20, 30 years? Because the taxes are just not there. I mean, come on, look at the population. We got an older population here in Nova Scotia, right?
Yep, for sure.
The one thing that I do not like is that the Maritimes has a lower, what do you call it? You can come to the Maritimes and get your permanent residency card in 3 years instead of, let's say, Ontario is 10 years. So that's why you see all the Ontario plates here.
I didn't know that. Is that true, Ken? I might have to take your word for it.
Yeah, it is. It is true. That's why, like, I have a friend that has a fast food restaurant here in town, and he can't keep workers. He trains them, and all of a sudden they're in their third year. Guess what? Their family's buying them a ticket. Boom, they're going back to Ontario because now they have their permanent residency card. That's why you see all the Ontario plates.
Well, I think there's a lot of Ontario plates here because a lot of people bought property here during the pandemic because it was cheap, and now the prices are through the roof.
Well, yeah. Well, on the news there this morning, it says they reported on CTV that most of the houses in Toronto now are going below asking.
Yeah, they're down. I think I saw it was 10%, 12%, something like that.
Yeah, not going to happen here for a long time.
No, that's for sure.
Right?
That's is something that I've been watching for because, to be quite honest, I think the real estate market in HRM itself is well oversaturated, and I think that bubble has to burst sometime, right?
Well, I mean, Dan, when you keep doing projects like bike lanes that start out at $25 million, which was BS from the start, and now they're ballooned to $90 and $100 million, and you have counselors on there like Sam Austin, going, oh, we need bike lanes, and Gloria asked him there yesterday about one of the streets in Woodland, and he's putting up another light like 100 feet away from another light at Victoria and Woodland. It makes absolutely no sense.
Right.
So, I mean, I got to ask, what's in it for Sam Austin? Because he says, oh, well, look, that's my campaign that I ran on. It was the bike lanes. Do you think everybody likes every part of your campaign? Come on, give it a break. How stupid do you think we are? And as far as the Zoom meetings, I disagree with you on that. The Premier or the Prime Minister has met all the Premiers multiple times.
Right.
He doesn't need to be there to see what kind of a vibe that they're getting, right? It worked during COVID. There's nothing wrong with Zoom meetings. right? It's just he sucked you people in. Whoever voted Liberal, he sucked you people in, and I hope you feel real stupid now because he's on a spending spree and he's there for the next 4 years, and there's absolutely nothing we can do about it. And guess what? Everything's still going up, 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 and it ain't going to be any better anytime soon. He's going, oh, I'm going to increase the Navy. Okay, get out your knitting needles, people, because where are you getting the people from? I'm going to build all these houses. The same thing. Where are you getting the people from to do the work? Right? It's a whole lot of promises, right? Your normal, big budget guy or whatever, he's in the money and he's going over to China, borrowing millions for his company, right? That is now down in the States. If you really think Carney's looking after your best interests, give your head a shake.
Ken, I appreciate the call, sir. Have a good one. 902-405-6000. John, you get the last word, sir.
Hey, buddy. How's it going, Dan?
Good. What's on your mind?
Thanks for having me on. I'm just going to drop a quick little bomb here. Remember when Tim Houston, he was really adamant about getting the population to go to 2 million?
Yep.
Okay. Anyone ever wonder the reason for that? Well, here it is, and I'm going to let you and everybody out there do your own research on it. His wife, Carol, she works for a company called GHGR Strategies, and that's an immigration staffing firm, and she gets a ton of kickbacks from it. So I just wanted to drop that one out there and let everyone do their own research on it since I'm the last call.
All right, John, appreciate it, sir.
Thanks. Bye.
Don't know if that's the truth, but I'm sure that if that data is out there, then somebody's going to dig it up. I appreciate each and every one of you for taking time out of your day, dialing the numbers, and joining the program. I appreciate it. You make my day each and every time that you do it. We're going to stop. Blake is going to update us in the news at noon. And on the other side of it, it's time to welcome our astrophysicist, Dr. Rob Thacker from St. Mary's University will be here. It's time for Science Files. If you have a science-related question, perfect opportunity to get it answered. Again, the number is 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Science Files after the break.
Facts.
Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. It's Tuesday. It's hour number 3, and that means it's time now for Science Files. Dr. Rob Thacker in the house and here to answer your questions. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. If you have a science-related question, Dr. Rob will do his very best to answer it. And if he can't, bonus points for you. I'm just kidding. He'll figure it out. Anyway, welcome, Dr. Rob. I've been talking about back to school here for some time. It's back to work for you, right?
Well, I mean, I do my research in the summer and I work with my graduate students in the summer, so it's not like I get a few weeks off. But other than my holiday, of course, which was great.
Yes.
But no, so it's back to term time. And I got a couple of really good classes I'm teaching right now. I've got another course I've got to teach later on. So it's a fairly busy time.
Dr. Rob teaches at St. Mary's University, obviously, and I remember last year we were in here talking about this, and your students used to listen to the show, and they would critique your performance, Dr. Thacker.
So that, funnily enough, I mean, given how long I've been doing the show, gosh, it will be 10 years next year.
Wow.
So I thought that might happen earlier, but last year, like a few of them listened in, and I basically sort of told them, I said, look, I mean, you don't have to listen to this if you don't want to. The's no bonus
it's not
marks
required
available,
right? Yeah,
no
it's not in the
bonus marks
curriculum.
available. So I mean, they listened a bit, and then the novelty kind of wore off, I think. So
902-405-6000, 902-405-6000 is the number. Dr. Rob, we obviously have lots. We talk about space a lot in here.
Sure.
Space news this week. There's plans or could be plans in the not too distant future to get rid of the independent space agency in the UK. I know some place that you're very familiar with.
Yeah.
Is that in danger of happening here? Because Canadian space agency is relevant, but it's not really huge like, say, NASA is.
No, I don't think the CSA is going anywhere, if I'm really honest. I mean, it does a very particular job in Canada, I would say. I mean, there is sort of like interest in sort of like pushing private space development more, and there is an independent lobby arm doing that right now. A certain Mr. Gallant is involved in that. But with the CSA, their job really is building connections, right? And so we don't have all of the sort of like massive development of technology that NASA does and so on within the CSA. They have a small number of things that they're involved with, and it's really about making sure contracts go to the right places, business gets developed, and so on. I mean, even the David Florida Lab, I think that got closed down, right? So it's not really on the same scale, and it performs a very different job to NASA. And I don't think it's going to go away in a hurry because of that.
With the shift now to more of the private sector, the SpaceXs of the world and that kind of thing, do you think that the CSA's job is more difficult to try and recruit and retain those that wanted to become astronauts or to study space, because it's not as in the front as it was at one time when it was all NASA and we had shuttles going up every 6 months and those kind of things?
So it is interesting that whenever people talk about Canada in space, they tend to do so in a kind of nostalgic, historic discussion way. I mean, if you go back to Canada being involved very early on in the space race, putting satellites up and so on, it was known for that. And we haven't, some would say we haven't fulfilled the early promise that was shown, but at the same time, I don't think Canada has sat back and done nothing either. Right. So if you look at some of the things we've been involved in, we've contributed important things like to James Webb. I mean, we really have a very important instrument on that mission, and it's an $8 billion mission, for heaven's sake. So Canada has done a lot of valuable things in space, and obviously our astronauts, everyone knows and loves them very well. We've had quite a number of them now. And I think that alone sort of like sets this sort of like playing field for how younger people certainly get to interact with space. I mean, the Canadian Space Agency right now does a lot of doing work, providing materials for promotion of the space industry in schools and so on. So I think having sort of like the private interests in this and the lobby arm of that really does, to a certain extent, sort of amplify the signal.
You are obviously very involved in the space world and in the teaching end of things.
Yeah.
Are students coming into, I guess they're still kids, coming into university now with their eyes in the stars, or is all of the emerging technology on terra firma kind of grabbing their attention now?
So there's still a very present interest in space, I would say. I mean, one of the things I do need to sort of point out that there is something of a difference between studying astronomy versus being interested in near-Earth orbit satellites and so on, because that really is the engineering side. Right. And so what we teach at SMU is primarily the space science side. So there is a bit of a difference there. But we still do get students come through. We had a student, Matthew, not long ago, who was very interested in ultimately going and work on designing rockets and felt that, doing the science side of it first would be the particular route that they wanted to take, which is totally fine. So, yes, there still are a lot of students who are interested in that side of things, but we're not the place where people are going to go if you're really interested in developing engineering for space projects. That's probably somewhere else you're going to go, like Toronto's. I mean, Dal does a bit of it as well, obviously. So that is not the kind of student we tend to get at SMU. We tend to get the sort of like, how can I put it? The dark sky thinkers, right? Who want to know about the science behind astrophysical objects like stars and galaxies and so on. We get those. I mean, you still can sort of like take that route. As I said, Matthew is doing exactly that and go off and then work in the space industry. And the ironic thing is, I was talking to people I won't say who the contractor is because I really suppose I shouldn't because this is defense related, but they actually have a project where they've developed the space telescope. And there's now a lot of interest in pointing that space telescope down at the ground for defense purposes, because we have a situation now where with the increased geopolitical tensions, a number of countries in Europe really want to monitor their borders at quite high resolution.
And Five Eyes isn't what it used to be because the Americans control that and they have their hands on the intelligence community.
Right. So there's now all of a sudden, for better or worse, I should say that, this market for basically surveillance monitoring from space. And so some of the Canadian contractors are going to be right in there.
See, I don't tell Dr. Rob the questions I'm going to ask him at the beginning. This is truly off the cuff, so I'm sure he hates this first 15 minutes.
No, it's fun.
902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Space News reported about this morning that China is now proposing a flyby mission to the asteroid Apophis. When it comes in 2029, flyby missions are designed to study these things and not sort of mine them or adjust their trajectory.
You're getting close. You can take detailed pictures. You can do what we call spectroscopy. You can see what the elements are in it, and that's really what flybys. I mean, I'm not a scientist who works in this area, and I've specifically chosen not to work in this area, I suppose. So this kind of thing is I'm much more interested in the sample collection side, because then you can really do lots of detailed analysis on the materials, and it tells you a lot about what the material that made up the solar system was. So that's more of an interest for me. I think the kind of things I'd be really interested for flybys would actually be these interstellar comets, the comets coming from other solar systems. But even then, it's like so interesting to grab some of that material, see what the isotopic ratios are, learn about the different types of water that they have in that's the isotopic ratio. So different numbers of neutrons and protons in an atom can still be the same kind of atom, but they're just a little bit heavier. And so that would be really cool to know. So I'd love to, it would be so amazing if we could do a flyby for the current 3i Atlas.
Flyby as opposed to data or collections.
Yeah.
I would imagine flyby easier to engineer.
You got it.
Than trying to land something on one of those
things. And it's a problem in a number of ways, because when you fly by something, you try and get a reasonable intercept speed, and you can work within the parameters of the trajectory of the object and what you can do with your rocket. If you want to actually go down and land on it and grab something, you've got two problems. First thing is you've got to be able to basically accelerate or decelerate to the right speed to intercept, which takes chemical energy, right? You've got to have the rocket fuel to do that. And then once you do that, you've then got the additional problem that there's very, very weak gravity around these things. So you've got to navigate within that weak gravity. And you might say, if it's very weak, can we just ignore it? And the answer is no, you can't, because your spacecraft will start doing unusual things. You can't pilot it by hand. All of that's got to be done remotely. So you've then got to estimate what the overall gravitational field around these things is, which can be non-trivial if they have an unusual geometry.
Would it be easier to have a human do it rather than to do it from Earth?
It would probably be better in the sense that a human that's been sort of like trained to pilot in a low gravity environment might sort of like be able to respond quickly. A little bit like the Apollo astronauts were trained to be able to recover from spins, right? Which is actually one of the most amazing stories of the whole space race, as far as I'm concerned, is Armstrong recovering the Gemini spin. That is truly mind-blowing to be able to do that under a high G spin situation. Right? I think that doesn't get enough press for how incredible that truly was. But if you put a human into a low-gravity environment with some kind of training, then I think that they'd probably be able to do a pretty good job.
Do we land on asteroids a lot? Do we get a lot of collection from them because of the difficulties?
We've done a couple of missions, right? And so it's non-trivial to do that, because we don't ahead of time know how these things are made up. They could just be rubble piles, which seems to be pretty common, or they might be solid. So some of the more sort of like metallic asteroids, they're going to be more solid. So you don't know ahead of time, and so you have to be pretty careful because of that.
Not made out of cheese, is it?
Fromage, yes.
Dr. Rob's here for the next 45 minutes to answer your science-related questions. If you have a question, 902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Science Files after the break. Sometimes the discussions that happen in the studio during the breaks are quite fascinating. We were just discussing the possibility of wormholes, and I'm sure we could probably do a whole show on that based on all the science fiction that we've watched. But remember, it's science fiction.
I was going to say, when we finish it, we just come back to the start again, right?
And it just loops around, and you end up a long way away from where you started. 902-405-6000, 902-405-6000, or 1-877-801-8255. Let's begin with Joe. Joe, how are you?
Very good. How are you guys doing today?
Good. Your question for Dr. Thacker, please.
Yes, sir. I wanted to ask a question about geosolar and solar geoengineering.
Solar geoengineering. Okay.
Yeah. Do you know anything about that?
I don't know a lot about that. I presume that's probably something to do with changing the amount of light reflected from the Earth or something like that.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I've been hearing about. I've been noticing a lot of it going on in our skies. It's like our skies are white, and I see it in the morning, and then it'll, and I know it's being done. I just wanted to get your opinion on it. And
okay.
What do you think about the idea? The idea, I think it's a pretty incredible idea, but it's just a theory that to cool the Earth, what is it, down to 5%? They want to try to lower the amount of sun rays coming through the Earth about 5%.
Yep.
Emitting aerosols in the skies and trying to reflect the sun from coming through.
Yeah, I can say something on this, Joe. I've got some thoughts for sure. So
it's very controversial.
Yeah,
and
I'll try and sort of outline why I think it's become more controversial as well. So this is what I would call an active way of managing the solar energy coming to the Earth. So you're literally actively putting things into the upper atmosphere, and that's increasing the reflectivity, right? Whether it's putting an aerosol very high in the stratosphere or whether it's increasing the reflectivity of marine clouds, right? And so that is something that we as humans understand the technology and know how to do that, right? But the challenge with those kind of systems is if there's any kind of conflict or whatever, and suddenly you can't do them anymore, you're actively back in the same place you were. So I am not a particularly big fan of what I will call active geoengineering, where you actually have to take time to do it because that relies upon everything going well down on the surface of the Earth. And as we're seeing right now, we are kind of struggling with that.
Yeah, it's happening. It's happening. I can see it like almost on a daily basis. I could see a clear day just turn beautiful blue skies into white. And I wondered, I said, if we took a picture of Ukraine right now, would this guy, since you can't do a flyover, I'd like to compare the both skies. And I guarantee you that theirs would be blue. I don't remember having a blue sky anymore. It's like every time I look up, and I spend a lot of time looking up in the air, and I see it happening from morning till night. It's unbelievable. And nobody knows about it, but it is actively happening, like you're saying.
Well, I mean,
I don't know what the results could be.
So the main thing I would say is, I mean, this is something that's understood in an experimental way. I mean, people have done tests with aerosol injections. As far as I know, there is no large-scale version of that being done, though, right? And similarly with increasing the reflectivity of clouds, I'm not aware of that being done in a very large way. In fact, that's one of the problems with it, right? With marine cloud, increasing the brightening of those, actually to be able to do that is quite difficult, and we don't really know how we'll be able to do that in an easy way, right? But aerosols is the one that people often come back to, right? And again, it's something that has been tested. People know what the results of that are and can predict them and model them quite well. But again, it's just not something that I think is an effective way. I mean, the really, truly effective way of dealing with the increasing impact of solar radiation on the Earth and the greenhouse effect is to make sure that we cut back on greenhouse gases.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate the call. 902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Trying to change the clouds in Atlantic Canada would be a very difficult task, considering that they change almost on a moment's notice, and there's fog and all of that stuff.
Yeah, no, it's so the cloud brightening thing is. I mean, it's an interesting idea, but again, to be able to do it on a really, really large scale requires an awesome amount of investment and industrial. Basically production to do that, and I don't think that we can do that in a way that probably doesn't even put more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere.
Right. Again, 902-405-6000, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Came across an article, Dr. Rob. We've only got about 3 or 4 minutes left before the break. And whenever I see anything with the words black and hole on them, I know that it's time for me to have that discussion with Dr. Rob, because we know that that's kind of one of his things. Black holes don't suck, remember? No. But this says that that black holes, at least it's being studied, that they, for lack of a better term, spit up things as opposed to suck them in. It will push stuff out.
They don't suck, they blow.
There you go.
Right,
you said it, not me.
So yeah, this is this actually speaks close to home. This is results from the so-called GRISM Japanese X-ray telescope, which my colleague Luigi Gallo at SMU has been an important part of. So. And the ironic thing is, just now looking at it, the lead author is John Miller, who I know from University of Michigan. So this is really looking at outbursts from black holes. And so why we are so interested in black holes is not because they suck everything in, it's because they push stuff out and they really impact the things around them. And so one of the really amazing things about the GRISM X-ray telescope is it's able to look at the black holes with really, really fine resolution different X-ray wavelengths. And so we can see what's going on much better than we could with previous X-ray telescopes like Chandra and XMM Newton and so on. And so when we look at these things, we're understanding what's happening with both the black hole, the disk that forms around it, which we call the accretion disk, and then the winds coming off the accretion disk. And now this is kind of an amazing topic, because really, if I'm totally honest for the field on the radio on behalf of everyone, we don't fully understand the physics of the disks. And the physics of the disks relates to the material that gets shot out of the disks. And so the more data we have about this, in particular whether as a disk gets brighter, whether that actually leads to further brightening because material gets funneled into the disk or not, and all sorts of issues like that. So this is a really neat piece of work doing a high resolution. But the kind of things I'm interested in personally are much, much bigger black holes. This is a small-scale black holes.
So as we've said, the common fallacy with a black hole is that it's living out there in space and it's sucking everything into it. But that's just not the case, right?
No, it's literally, if we turn the sun into a black hole of the same mass of the sun, that's not a great solution for us, I should say that.
I think we'd probably die.
Yeah,
very
we would,
quickly.
because we get very cold very quickly. But as you go around the sun, that's still going to stay the same, right? Our orbit around it would still be exactly the same. And so this is one of the reasons why I kind of have used the catchphrase black holes don't suck, because they're not sitting there and sucking things in. Things can fall in the same way you fall back down to the Earth under gravity.
And things can fall out, as this whole study is looking at.
Well, so these were things that weren't ever inside.
Right.
That's the kind of thing to remember, that what ends up happening is that the environment around the black hole becomes so energetic that things get thrown away.
He likes black holes.
Da, da, da.
Science Files is going to continue. Blake's going to update us on the other sides of the news. We will take your calls. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Science Files after the break. All right, welcome back. This is Science Files. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. He is Dr. Rob Thacker, our resident astrophysicist and science smart guy. Can I call him that? Anyway, he's here for the next 30 minutes to answer your science-related questions. If you have a question, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255, just like Carl did. Carl, how are you?
Very well. Good afternoon, gentlemen. This 3i Atlas, my gosh, there's so much popping up on YouTube and just crazy stuff.
You got it. Some of it is crazy stuff.
Well, I thought I would. Well, so I want to address that, but also first I want to ask you a silly question, just to bring some levity. The 3 eyes, are they all the same color, Dr. Ross?
all gray, yes.
No, but realistically now, there's so much popping up on YouTube. It's absolutely insane, you know. What's the latest information that is real, not bogus information, that you can share with us about this, so we can the difference?
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, we can sort of look at things that we can do with what I'll call spectroscopy, right? So it's got 3i Atlas has a really very high carbon dioxide to water ratio, right? That's unusual, but I mean, it's come from a different planetary system as far as we know. So again, that shouldn't be a huge surprise. In fact, I was talking to Dan earlier saying that's one of the things I would love to be able to do in terms of a mission to intercept one of these things. But we won't be able to do it for this one, but maybe once the Rubin telescope finds a few more of these things, maybe we'll do that in the future. So really, I mean, we've got a reasonable idea on the composition. We've got some details about the tail and so on. And so now we have a fairly good understanding of the size of it, although I think we had a pretty good understanding of the size fairly early on. And so this is, again, sort of like there's limits to what you can do from just looking at these things, but you can learn a lot. I mean, obviously we know the trajectory and so on. So really, when you start seeing stuff on YouTube about how it could be this alien spacecraft and things like that, then I would sort of suggest you can spend your time more productively reading actual science podcasts or listening to actual science podcasts on YouTube.
Sure. All right, so it's safe to say all three eyes are the same color.
Sure thing, yeah.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Carl. 902-405-6000, 902-405-6000. For those of you who have no idea what we're talking about, Dr. Rob, tell me a little bit about this mammoth comet. Is it on a crash course with Earth? Is it
no? I mean,
close?
it's not anything sort of like to be concerned about from that perspective. It's going to zoom past the sun fairly far out, all right, and it's I think it's passing by us somewhere between our orbit and Mars's orbit and so on. So it's really not that close as these things go. But it's incredible because it's the biggest of these objects that we've seen, right? So thus far we've seen three. So Oumuamua and then Comet Borisov and now 3I Atlas. So, I mean, it's now sort of like big enough in the sky that we can start looking at different parts of it with big telescopes like the Gemini telescope and so on. So people are actively doing that. But the main thing that we can do from that is we can start telling what the abundance of the atoms in it are. And that is the main thing. That's how one of the reasons for us sort of like looking at the ratio of CO2 to water and things like that. So more of that is going to get done. You can infer sort of like it's really difficult to do from just one item, but people do it. So if you have one object, you can kind of infer what it's come from. Right. And so this was one of the things about how water arrived on the Earth that for a long time we sort of suggested, we think sort of comets came and hit the Earth and put the water on there. But then when you look at the types of water based upon the isotopic ratios of the water on comets, it just doesn't match what we have on the Earth. So that actually meant that we had to change our understanding of how water got to the Earth. And so, in fact, we think that water got to the Earth on what we'll call hydrated minerals in asteroids. So this is literally water in the mineral systems, comes to the Earth, gets heated up, gets released, but you have an ocean, right? So those
must have been rather large bodies, right?
Yeah, they were. So for sure. And I mean, we tend to sort of forget that because the Earth is in a solar system now where there are still sort of like leftover pieces of asteroids floating around, but there aren't a lot of them, right? So what we experience on the Earth is very, very placid in terms of the number of impact events compared to if you went back 4 billion years, right? If you go back 4 billion years, boy, you couldn't survive here, right? It just wasn't possible, right? But now, of course, it is much placid, so we tend not to really get our heads around what the Earth and the proto-Earth were actually like. That was a pretty violent place, to be honest.
You said 3I Atlas is coming through here from somewhere else.
Somewhere else, yeah.
Do we know where it came from?
So presumably people could roughly give you a trajectory on that because we know where it is in the solar system. We know what it's... But I haven't seen any analysis of that. One of the challenges with it is literally stars move over time within the galaxy. Now, we can run the clock backwards, but all of this depends upon the speed of travel and things like that. And there's always the possibility it came from just a bit further away with a different velocity. And that's one of the challenges with this. But I'm sure there will be like a reasonable sort of attempt to put a guess on this. I don't know if someone's tried to do that already.
I imagine it would be a rather lengthy mathematical equation.
It's not trivial because you've got so many things to think about. I mean, some of the things we just don't know. Like you don't know how stars are moving across the sky if they're too far away. You only know how they're going relative to you, backwards and forwards, and so that makes it difficult. But within reason, for the things that are closer to us, we actually can see them move on the sky, so we can actually get pretty good statistics. There's something called the Gaia mission that measured the actual movements of stars to a really high degree of precision. That's one of the most amazing space telescope projects we've done. But the problem with it is it's all very, very technical. And so it doesn't translate. Like, I show you a picture from James Webb and you go, ooh, wow. Right. And I show you a picture from Gaia and you go, oh, that's nice. What's so special about that? But there's this amazing data set in Gaia about all of the movements of the stars that tell us not only about the movements of the stars, but actually about the makeup of our galaxy as well.
You mentioned a telescope that's going to spot these. Is this we know that its arrival because of the new telescope that you were using to spot them?
So how was 3i Atlas found? So I mean that must have been found on one of the sort of like number of telescopes we have that are genuinely out there looking for comets. I mean, we do that not just for astronomy purposes, we're doing that for safety purposes as well, right? Because you want to find these things on the sky. And so, but I think once Rubin is really, I mean, Rubin is going now, but the point of Rubin is to have all of this data. We get a full scan of the southern sky every 3 days, and then that's just going to show stuff up. I mean, it's hard for me to explain why Rubin is so interesting in that regard. It's just going to take all of this data every 3 days. We get a full scan of the southern sky, so you'll literally be able to make a movie of what's happening in the southern sky with a 3-day time period. And so that will find things that we've never found before.
902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Science Files continues after the break.
X.
This might be a little known fact to you all and to our guest, Dr. Rob Thacker, is that I have been a big fan of macaws for a very long time. I find them to be absolutely fascinating animals.
Intelligent.
And beautiful, too, to be quite honest.
Yep.
But they do a lot of really cool things. They live a really long time, and they can be absolutely amazing animals. And Rob sent me an article about blue-throated macaws, which is a subsect of the macaw that they're studying. And the theory that I was working under with lack of a better term, parrots, and it was that anything that you teach them, like to, Polly wants a cracker, was just imitation. That's what they would do in the wild. They would imitate different birds and different things. Yep. But this study that you sent me is suggesting that at least the blue-throated macaw isn't just imitating, and there's some cognitive stuff going on in that little bird brain.
This is a really beautiful result. So let's you've kind of got it off the table, but let's give it a proper name. So what you're talking about when you just copy something is known as second-party imitation, right? So you're literally just seeing something, you're copying what it's doing, and then that's done. You can basically just cracker or whatever, right?
That was pretty close.
So in this case, what they've done is to literally take a macaw, put it on its own in a room, and then in a room next to it, it can see another macaw interacting with a human. And the human is making hand signs to the macaw, and in response to those hand signs, the macaw that's with the human is doing something like fluffing its feathers up, raising its wings, whatever. It has a very specific, it's been trained to do a very specific response from a command from the human. Right. So the other macaw, they have now shown, in general, not everyone, but some of them, are able to watch this interaction between two animals and then figure out what the macaw is doing in response to what the human has done. Right? And so it's actively learning that the human makes a signal, the other macaw raises its wings, whatever, and then when they put a human being in the room with the other macaw that was actually watching and learning, it could actually respond to the human signals.
Wow.
Right? So that's what's called third-party learning, where you literally have to have 3 individuals involved for the learning process to happen. Right?
So it kind of belays the theory that the animals just, or it's a food response, right? Like you give the macaw something to eat and it'll squawk at you, it'll lift a wing, whatever. But this is This is actually active learning.
This is arguably a social response, right? It's seeing another macaw doing something, right? It probably doesn't know what the benefit of that is, right? It may not have a system for comprehending that, but it's seeing that one macaw is responding to a human doing a certain action, and it learns the signal from the human to do that action, right? Which is something that they think is developed in macaws because macaws have very social interactions in their groups.
Very social birds.
Right, very social birds. And so this is something that probably is beneficial within their own particular social lives within their group of macaws. I was going to say parrots, but I'm not going to say parrots. I'll say macaws.
The ability to train macaws is that's what's fascinating to me is they have it's not just Polly wants a cracker. You're able to train a macaw to do all kinds of things and fly big circuits and come back to the same spot on command. And they're an amazing, amazing bird. And it just always goes to show how much or how little we know about the animal kingdom.
Well, so this is one of the things that I think is becoming more and more significant. The more kind of research that we see like this, the more that we learn that there are certain specific skills that animals have that we really have not given them credit for in the past, right? And I think to a certain extent in the past there was a temptation to, and this is a horrible thing to say, but I think it's true, there was a temptation to suggest that animals were less capable to be able to motivate doing unkind things to them, right? And I think now that we're learning more and more, like I genuinely wonder about what the sense of processing for whales is. Because anyone who's been out whale watching and you see a whale looking at you, you can't but sort of like stop and think, I wonder what that whale is thinking.
Right.
Right. So I think this kind of research is extremely beneficial because it shows that these creatures, right, whether it's a macaw, whether it's a whale, whatever, have a level of comprehension that is really quite a bit beyond what we've traditionally thought.
And we always kind of judge the ability to learn, quote unquote, based on the size of an animal's brain, right? And a macaw's head's not very big. So
yeah, no, I mean, I've seen this with crows. Like during COVID,
super smart birds.
I walked around the cemetery that's just next to our house many, many times, and I made friends with the crows. And you could kind of see personalities in them after a while, and very smart birds. I mean, everyone has heard of this sort of like story, like they figure out how to get a drink by putting stones in a cup and so on, but they are really smart. And there was one in particular that sooner or later realized that I'm just giving them peanuts every now and again, and so I'm not a threat. And so it would come up to me and just sort of like look up and like, give me a peanut. Right. And I'd never seen a crow do that before. And I wasn't trying to sort of like tame them or anything like that. I don't want to do that. But literally, I had an interaction with an animal where it just had really come to the conclusion I wasn't a threat to it.
I watched a crow open a latch on a cooler.
Could totally believe it. Yep.
It was they like shiny things, right?
Yep.
But they had and they didn't take a long time to do it. And it was at a park. So that was learned behavior because they figured out how to lift that shiny thing, and there's stuff inside there that they want, right? So
there's a whole bunch of videos of people like trying to give them more and more complex problems to work through. I should probably go and look at some of that.
902-405-6000, 902-405-6000. Let's welcome Don to the program. Don, how are you?
Good morning, gentlemen. Even you, Dan. How you doing, sir?
Good, I'm good.
I had to say that to you, Dan. We like, you know what, listeners like you and your little chuckle there, your little laugh, okay? Really. Anyway, back to Rob. Just two questions.
Sure.
If you put a battery on your tongue and to see if it's still good, is that a myth or a belief or what?
So for a 9-volt, that's going to work, yep. You'll be able to feel it if it's still got a charge, sure.
Yeah. Okay, what about the other ones?
A little tough to get your tongue wrapped
well, that's
around
the problem. Exactly, you can't. 9-volt is really the only thing it's going to work on because you've got the positive and negative right there, so you can stick it on your tongue.
I'll tell the person I kind of believe that myth then. And the other thing is true is, oh God, from your ability, smart guy you are, can you do we have the grit, the power, any city right now? And we went all, out with electric cars right now. We get the grit, the power source design for electric cars, say, within a year or 5 years.
With the grid support going completely electric.
We've talked about this a lot. I mean, the honest answer is no, right? You have to build additional infrastructure to support tens and tens of thousands of electric cars. I mean, there's an understanding of that, though. Right. And that's one of the things that when we talk about net zero and the build out that we need to do with the electrical infrastructure, issues along those grounds are included within that. And in fact, there's some really interesting research there, because what do you do if you have a whole bunch of batteries sitting in cars that are connected to the grid? Can you use that to even out the power supply in certain situations? That's a really interesting research problem, because you actually could.
Because you could put them onto the grid and they would act as a generator.
Exactly.
Never really thought about it that way. But you and I have had discussions. Thanks for the call, Don, by the way. You and I have had discussions in the past about the actual capacity of the electrical grid as it stands right now. And going from 0 to 60 with electric vehicals, that the current wires that we have just couldn't handle that capacity.
Yeah, so that's, again, and some people sort of like see this as a reason for not doing it. I really don't think that's fair, and I don't think that's appropriate. It's one of the reasons why we have to transition over at a period of years, right? Because no one is going to disagree with me when I say the power infrastructure in Nova Scotia is aging. It is, right? And so
fragile. We can say fragile.
And so there are things that are going to have to be done to not only transport more energy over large distances, we're also going to have more connection points and so on. But I think to a certain extent, the amount of development we need to do within urban environments for this isn't too bad. But one of the advantages is most of our infrastructure is above ground, right? So we can actually go in and do it. That's the only time I'm ever going to say that is an advantage, because the rest of the time it should be underground, so it's actually not being impacted by trees blowing over.
Hurricane-proof?
Exactly.
Yes.
Right? But it does mean that where we need to put more infrastructure in within certain urban areas, we can do that. Right. But otherwise, just right now, no, if everyone suddenly switched, no, we don't have the capacity to do that. But that feeds into estimates suggesting we probably need, ballpark people say, twice the amount of electricity production that we have right now. It could be a little bit more. Right. But to do that, there's no choice. We're going to have more ways of connecting power supplies into the grid as well.
Never really thought about the fact that you're plugging an electric car into the grid, and in theory, that could act as a gargantuan-sized battery for the whole grid. I never really thought about that, which makes sense, because I think I mentioned this last week when they rolled out the Ford rolled out the F-150 Lightning, the electric pickup truck. They were showing it that it's able to power your home. There's a plug-in. You can plug your so it would make more sense that if we plugged all of these things in, they could. And then they'd have to pay us, Dr. Rob.
Yeah, so I'm going to do a shout-out here for Jeff Hahn at Dalhousie, who was a proponent of, was basically an amazing researcher in battery design and so on. He's been talking about this for a long time. Right. He's saying, like, look, we're going to deploy thousands of batteries. Think about what we can do with that.
Always a pleasure, Dr. Rob. We're out of time. We'll see you next week.
Always a lot of fun. Thanks, everyone.
That is Dr. Rob Thacker from St. Mary's University, our resident astrophysicist. Oh, the way we go from macaws to batteries to black holes to space rockets. It's a wonderful hour. It's been a fantastic day. Thank you to all of our guests who joined the program and imparted their knowledge upon us. I appreciate it. Thank you to all of you who took the time out of your busy days to dial the number and join us on the phone. You make my day when you do that. Thanks to Vanessa Vandenez on the other side of the glass for keeping everything in somewhat of an orderly fashion and keeping me where I'm supposed to be on time. Not easy to do. Big show for you for the midweek Wednesday edition. I hope you can spend some time with us tomorrow. Until then, everybody, please be well and be kind to one another.